Hello everyone, welcome back. Now that you are getting familiar with Ansible, it is time to look at one of the most important files in your Ansible setup, the ansible.cfg, the configuration file. Think of this as your control center. It is a configuration file that defines how Ansible behaves during automation. The configuration file can be configured in different locations. You can define which configuration file to use by setting the ansible underscore config environment variable. You can have a system wide configuration, a user specific one, or even a project specific configuration file. Ansible will search for this configuration file in this following order. First, it checks if the Ansible underscore config environment variable is configured or not. If configured, Ansible will use the file specified in this variable and stop searching further. If no environment variable is configured, Ansible looks in the project directory for the configuration file. If the file is not found in the project directory, it searches the user's home directory for .ansible.cfg file. Note the dot prefix. It is not just ansible.cfg but .ansible.cfg file. It is a hidden file. As a last resort, if no other configuration file is found, Ansible will use the default file located in /etc/ansible folder. So what does the ansible.cfg file looks like? Now you can generate a fully commented out Ansible configuration file using the ansible config init command. Let's do that. So currently we are in the module 3 folder and nothing is configured till now. So I'll use ansible config init command, and as we want this file to be fully commented out, so we'll use disabled and we'll redirect the output to a ansible.cfg file. Our configuration file is ready. Let's open it using VS Code. This is how the file looks like. As you can see, they have used two types of comment here. One is hash and one is semicolon. Both of these are supported. Now let's dive into some key settings that we often adjust in this file. First one is inventory. So this is where you define the default location of your inventory file. If you don't specify it in your ad hoc command, Ansible will look here first. Now next one is remote user. You can define user that Ansible uses to log into your managed nodes. You can also override this setting using u flag in ad hoc commands. Let's see one more, private key file. So Ansible often uses SSH for connecting to remote devices. So you can specify the path to your private key here. Now, since we are focusing on network automation, there are few settings you will want to pay special attention to. The first one is timeout. This is default timeout for connection plugins to use. When dealing with network devices, it is important to tweak your connection timeouts. Network devices can take a little longer to respond. So currently it is configured as 10, but you can change it to 30 or 60 depending on your environment. And the next one is one of the most important setting in Ansible config file, that is host key checking. So currently it is by default is configured as a true. Now this setting can stop your automation if Ansible finds a new host key that is not yet accepted. Now for lab and demo purposes, you may want to disable this, but be careful in production environment. So basically what happens whenever you SSH into a device for the first time, it prompts you to confirm if you want to add the device fingerprint or not. So usually you confirm by saying yes, which adds the fingerprint to the known host file. The next time you SSH into the same device, it won't prompt for the fingerprint again. So enabling the host key checking means that SSH expects the fingerprint to already be in the known host file. Okay, so these are all the settings. Now, so what happens, if you're managing multiple projects or environments, so you might have a different Ansible config file for each project, and you can manage these files separately in each project directory, or you can also have a single global configuration file. So for example, you could have one configuration for production environment where host key checking is enabled, and timeouts are different. But in your development environment, these settings might be more relaxed. Now let's do a demo to showcase all these options and to understand the order. So first I'll remove the configuration file. So we don't have anything in this folder right now. So if we haven't configured any configuration file manually, then by default, if we run Ansible version, if we run Ansible version from any folder, it will show you the system-wide setting. Like in this case, it is slash etc slash Ansible. Now let's create the configuration file. So I'll use a touch just to create the file. So now we have the file locally in this folder. Now if we do Ansible version, so this time it doesn't take the system-wide settings, but instead it uses the local or project-specific config file. So what will happen, if we create one more folder and do not create any config file? So suppose if we create in one folder called playbooks, and let's move to playbooks folder, and if we do Ansible version, as you can see, it is currently using the system-wide setting. So that means if you are running Ansible version command from any folder and the folder doesn't have any configuration file, then again it will go through the order. So as a last resort, it is using the slash etc slash Ansible file. So we can also try generating a configuration file in the home directory, and if any folder like this one doesn't have any local config file, then it can refer to the one in the home directory. So let's do that. I'll use one more terminal. I'll go to home directory and let's create a hidden file .ansible.cfg. If you do ls, you will not able to see as it is a hidden file. So you have to do ls minus a. So we have the configuration file ready in our home directory. Now if we do Ansible version again from this playbooks folder, now as you can see, now it is referring to the .ansible.cfg file from the home directory. Earlier it was using the last resort one, but now as we have one more configuration file in the home directory, it is preferring that one. But if we check from the other folder, let's move back. Now in this folder we have local Ansible configuration file. So if we do Ansible version from this folder, it is still using the local configuration file. And because in the hierarchy, if any configuration file is available in your local or project directory, it will prefer that one. If that is not present, then only it will use the Ansible .cfg file from your home directory. And if that file is also not present, in that case it will use the last resort one from slash etc slash Ansible folder. Now as we start creating projects and lose track of all these configuration file, so we may want to set a specific location. In that case, we can use the environment variable to specify the location. Now by setting the environment variable Ansible underscore configure variable, you can ensure that the Ansible always uses the specific configuration file. So regardless of the directory you are working in. Otherwise, Ansible will follow the directory hierarchy. So let's see how that looks. So I'll create a folder here. Let's give it a name Ansible main, and I'll create a configuration file. Okay. So now if we set the environment variable, so variable name is Ansible underscore config, and I'll set the path to this particular folder, this Ansible main. We also need to specify the file name. Let's test if it is working. Okay, so environment variable is configured. Now let's see if we do. So currently we're in this module 3 directory and we have a local configuration file. So if we do Ansible version from here, it is preferring the path which we have configured in the Ansible underscore config environment variable. So in this way, you can always override using this environment variable. So hope you have hope you have understood the hierarchy here. So you can use Ansible configuration file in your project environment depending on your specific requirement.